much. I can't believe we're coming to the end of this conference. Hasn't it been amazing? So I can hear you. Absolutely amazing. Okay, I'm very excited. It's my great pleasure to introduce Csilla. Oh God, I can't do this again. Csilla. Jaray. Ben. My darling Csilla. So Csilla holds an MA in English Language and Literature with a specialization in ESL, as well as an MA in Theater Studies. She has over 30 years of experience in English language teaching, both in general and business English. And her work brings together motivation, emotional intelligence, creativity, and a humanistic approach to technology. Today she'll invite us to reflect on change in the age of AI and what it means for our values, our classrooms, and the human skills we want to nurture in our learners. Csilla is also my colleague at Pilgrims, and I am very, very happy to say she's also my dear friend, who I admire so much. I'd also like to thank Pilgrims for sponsoring Scilla's plenary today and for having me with us today. So please join me in giving a very, very warm welcome to Csilla.
Thank you very much, Anna, for this very warm and loving welcome that you gave to me. And I would like to thank, I don't know if Sonia is here, she invited me, so a huge thank you to her, and of course a huge thank you to all of you who are in this room. As Anna said, I have a background and I studied theater, not practicing but the theory of theater, and I remember once writing a paper on minimizing the theater, and I think it also goes for minimizing presentations or teaching, that you can take away almost everything. You can take away the props, you can take away actors, you can take away the theater stage, but there is one thing you cannot take away, is the audience. So thank you very much for being here, because without you, I wouldn't be able to share my ideas with you, and I wouldn't have been able to come to this beautiful city of Aveiro, and this is my first time in Portugal as well. So again, big thank you to you. Honored the nice introduction and summed up a little bit what I would like to talk about today. So I'm going to start with my story, which is a very personal story, which goes back to this building. I won't tell you the year, because then you will know how experienced I am. We are experienced. But this is my high school. This is my high school in Budapest. And this is the day when students graduate. And I don't know how it is in Portugal. In Hungary, there's a tradition that on the last day there's a big celebration. We invite friends, we invite families, we are dressed in our school uniforms. The building is decorated with beautiful flowers, like the flowers we have here. And we walk through every single classroom. We can even walk through the teacher's room, where usually we were banned to go in. And we sing traditional songs. So this celebration is called Balagás. And what we get a lot of flowers, because of flowers in our arms, but we also get a little bag, a little pouch, which is prepared by students who are in the grade below us. And this pouch has little objects in it. I found this object yesterday at the market here in Aveiro. So we have one of these little objects. It's a with salt. It's a little bit of salt. Since it's Hungary, we also have a little bag of paprika. We have a similar little bag with soybean, the mother earth. And we have a list of our classmates. These are basically little objects for survival. This was me when I was in this building. And I was probably about one of those revolting teenagers who just, I kept distance from other people. I was not always very communicative and engaged in making relationships with the world in general. So in my bag at the end of high school, I also got a message from my literature teacher. And the message said that you, Csilla, you will learn thanks to the people you meet throughout your life. It was not a literary quote, it was just something that she wrote probably to each of us as a message for life. Back then, I didn't really give too much importance to this statement, but I kept a note in the back. And today, after many, many years of teaching, I know that I kept this in my heart. And I know that this is a sentence that defined the way I am today, and especially it defined the way I see my profession. And it conveys me two things. It conveys me the importance of lifelong learning. That's what we are doing here. And it conveys me the importance of connections, of human connections. And that's why we are here. We are here because we share values. We share values in our profession. And I don't know if you reflect on it or we don't, but now, in the next 50 minutes, we will reflect a little bit on how these values change and how these values define our practices, which also change. I love the logo of the conference, and I read Sonia's editorial, the introduction to the program, and she explains that the logo, they chose this logo and this design because it shows motion, it shows the evolution, it shows how the world is transforming. So our teaching values are also transforming. They are transforming over time. They are transforming based on different contexts, different experiences, different interactions we have with people. We meet a colleague at a coffee break and brings up an interesting idea. It will change probably the way we do things. And they also change because the context changes in which we work. And we will talk about AI and how it fundamentally disrupted and changed our practices, I would say. And we will reflect a little bit on how this change happens over time and why. So, I would like to introduce you a few theoretical points because for me theory is important. I see them as a pillar of what I do. And again, they change, they adapt to different contexts. But when we talk about the importance of human connections, transfer, transference, and empathy are key pillars. And you might not even know, for instance, I don't know if you know what transference is. Can you just raise your hand if you know what transference is? I didn't know it either. And I had a conversation with somebody who's not in teaching. And we talked about AI, and then he came up with this idea of transference. In French, where I live, the word is transfer. So I started to research a little bit, and then I realized how much is relevant to the world, our educational world. And since everything is in motion, everything is evolving, the dynamic systems theory is again a pillar in which I lean on very much, which goes with autonomy and agency. And of course, rules, community, humanistic approaches. And then when we went through all this, then we can see how AI fits into this context. So transfer is an educational concept. It just means that that's the sense of our teaching in a classroom. What we teach, it has to be transferable to life skills. So there are different types. If you read the literature about it, there's near transfer, the far transfer. Near transfer is when the situation in which that language skill that they acquired in a class is similar to what we did in a class. The far transfer is when it's completely different. It means that learning something in one context impacts the performance in another context. We heard in Anna's opening plenary that the classroom is a rehearsal for life. So that's what it is. And there are different ways, different strategies to teach this transfer, to teach for transferable skills, we call them. We either give similar situations to the desired situation. For instance, if we are preparing for a test, then we will do the homework before, which is similar to the test. So this is called hugging, because we are hugging the desired situation. Or another way is when the desired context will be very different. So if I give an example which is not from language teaching, but for instance a chess player learns the techniques and the way, the strategies of the chess, then he will be able to use these strategies, for instance, in an election campaign. So what it means is basically that the knowledge they acquire is reused across contexts. But learning is not just this. Learning is not just transferring knowledge. Learning is transformation experience. We all know that. But why? And this is where this concept of transference jumps in, that I'm really fascinated about. It's a psychoanalysis concept from Freud, and it is related to feelings and emotions, of course. So the transference is the redirection of feelings and emotions from one person to another. We all know that emotional patterns reshape learning. We all know the quote. I did make a slide with the quote because it's so well known from my underling that you will not remember what I said, you will not remember what I did, but you will remember how I made you. Thank you. Now, why is this transference possible? How does it work? Well, it works through empathy, which, on the contrary, is well documented, well researched, well used. Even in this conference, I counted several workshops, talks, plenaries, which included empathy. So I'm not going to go into long details in it, but this is a skill that we all have. What is important to know with empathy is not just feeling what somebody feels. It's not just understanding what somebody says or does. It is changing perspective. but it is changing perspective with the aim of responding to other person's needs. And this is where interaction, the word action is important, becomes important, because we are able to interact thanks to the skill that we all have. So empathy is that thing which will make our interaction meaningful and humanistically meaningful, that our interactions are not just about words, but they are about people. It's evolving, it's changing over time, so we can teach it. You can see a little activity we did in Segovia last summer, and our lovely colleagues, Anna, Annabelle, and Steffi, who are sitting right there, were demonstrating an empathy developing and fostering activity. So the time is very important, and the fact that it is moving, it is progressive, it is something which is in these circles of your conference, in these circles of motion. And then, my high school teacher's words, do you remember what she said on her little note? That Csilla, you will learn through people that you meet throughout your life. And they just resonate with Martin Luther's beautiful quote that the only way to learn is by encounters. And to finish off with empathy, it's not just between two persons, like in the picture, but it's in a community, in a small community which can be your family, your classroom, this beautiful conference we are attending. And there is a historian, Jaray, who wrote a book which is called Empathic Civilization, who says that this is the thread that holds us queer together, which makes us a society. Because every human being takes on the role of another person in order to assess that person's past behavior and intentions, and thus create an appropriate response. So this response, this movement, this continuous motion, which is triggered by empathy, is the power which creates a society. So let's go to nature and look at birds. I attended Steffi's workshop, beautiful workshop, a brilliant pilgrim's trainer, Steffi, and she showed birds. So I have my birds to demonstrate the concept which comes from science and which is very, very complicated. At least for my mind, it was extremely complicated. The dynamic systems theory, it just made me scared. But I was sharing a coach trip with Diane Larson-Freeman, who applied the dynamic systems theory of the nature to language learning. So she explained to me. And she gave me the example of the birds, that we see them as individuals are flying, seemingly in all directions, but actually no, they are in a very systemic, adaptive, evolving system which is defined by the context. And this is how Diane Larson-Freeman applies the dynamic systems theory to language learning. And she says that language learning is nonlinear, we all know that. It's not part of, it's not a whole of different little chunks and units like grammar, pronunciation, vocabulary, but it's something which is very interconnected in a very complex way, just like the birds. And of course, it's fluctuating. It's not always the same. Sometimes students progress, sometimes they don't. And time, it takes time. Learning takes time. Development takes time. And language learning, as these dynamic systems, are not the basic rules that come from outside. They have this internal emerging organization that we see from outside. And our language patterns are also these emerging language patterns which come up from students based on their individual needs, individual experiences, the context, the situation. And that's what we have to base on properly. So in this framework, according to this concept, knowledge is reorganization, learning is reorganization of knowledge. It's not the transfer from point A to point B. When I learn to use the past simple, I live in France, and for the French, the past simple is a lot more difficult than the present perfect. So I learn the past simple to be able to talk about my holiday experiences. That would be a transfer. No, it's the reorganization of knowledge. And I would like to give you this image of a river to demonstrate a little bit this seemingly complex idea. Imagine the river, and imagine that the river brings in, as it flows through valleys, through mountains, through cities, brings in new elements, new pebbles, new branches, mud, sometimes trash, unfortunately, as well. And it's moving. And the mass of water that you see at one point is not exactly the same as the mass of water that you see at another point, like 50 kilometers away. Those are different elements, different drops, myriads of drops of water. But the river remains the same. So the river is the past. It goes through space, but it also goes through time, if you take it as a metaphor. It brings past relationships, and these past relationships shape present perceptions, transference. In language learning, past experiences will shape the current language use. So the present becomes the past, which is reinterpreted in the current context. So to conclude on this probably a little bit complicated part right after lunch, language learning is a dynamic process in which prior emotional experience and prior learning are reactivated, reinterpreted, and reorganized in the present interaction. And every interaction reshapes what we know. The river will become always a little bit different with every single new drop while remaining a river. And this movement, this motion, this transformation is shaped by experience, by relationships, and by interaction with humans. And this brings down us to the learner. And we talk a lot about learner autonomy, when our learners manage their learning, when they have their internal capacity to progress on their own. And then we have the agency, which is something very different. It means that they act. The word is not an easy word to capture the meaning, but if, I don't know, how do you say act in Portuguese? In French, it's agir. So I think it's the same root. And then we're not talking about Sherlock Holmes here, the secret agent, but we are talking about somebody who is proactively invested in their learning process, who feel ownership over their learning, and which is a very important point here, which brings us back to human connections, is that this agency is only possible in relation with others. You can't be agent on your own. Your learner cannot be an agentic learner on their own. They need to be with someone, with a community, with a group. Because to learn the language is not just using words, it's not just expressing yourself, but it's taking part in it. And it is being active. Just listening, just receiving will not lead to learning. If you are engaged in what you are doing, then you are an active part in it. And that's why human connection will create the meaning. It's the interaction. It's those empathetic responses, those empathetic actions that will make language into communication. If we take a very simple classroom scenario, I teach business English, I teach adults, and in our programs, there's always a unit which is about the daily routine. What is the daily routine? I open my computer, I reply to my emails, and I have my coffee, and so on. Absolutely flat and meaningless exchanges. But if you say, tell me something that you felt strongly about last week, that will change everything. That will go beyond the words, that will talk to the person, and this interaction will start. We will start to be interested, not in what he says, but what he did. What is behind his words. So that's when meaning starts to be constructed between people, not inside individuals. Anybody recognizes themselves? Yeah? So it's just, I took this photo as an example, how much interaction and how much communication is part of our learning journey. Because we don't just learn a language, we learn to belong. We learn to belong to a community. Cover the aspect of community. This is our Congresso community. At one of our workshops. And then comes the sudden change. We go from that nice hugging circle to this image. Do you recognize? So, I think we are all puzzled by AI. I've been teaching and using technology and how to use technology in a humanistic way at university, and I practice it with my own learners. And I was puzzled by AI, which appeared as a tool, then it became a chatbot that you could interact with, and now it's an agent. It's not my agentic student, but it's another agent. So I like to learn through interactions. I asked someone who is an expert, and the person is young, he's in my family, he's an AI engineer, AI agent engineer, and their job title is forward development engineer. Get that beautiful term. Forward development engineer, the engineer who develops our future. And I asked him to explain in a very simple way that I can also process. So he gave the example of Harry Potter. Of course, he grew up with Harry Potter.
Wingardium Leviosa. Stop. You're going to take someone's eye out. Besides, you're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. You don't know if you're so clever. Go on. Wingardium Leviosa.
Oh, well done! See here, everyone. Miss Gray has done it. Splendid.
Wingardium Leviosa. I think we're going to need another feather over here, Professor.
So he told me that AI and prompt engineering works like Harry Potter's magic wand. You need two things. You need the wand and you need the word, the password, correctly. And either one is missing in your collection, it will not give the result, or it will not give you any result anywhere close to what you wanted. And then I asked him why. And then he said, well, AI is a tool, but AI uses other tools. And in these interactions, there are three things that AI can do. AI will choose the tools that he uses. I understand these are algorithms. He will choose the order in which he uses these tools. And then he will choose, interesting to say he, maybe it's she, or maybe it's they, or it's just it. So it will, the third thing it will decide and choose is when to stop. So it's just interesting to know and to be aware of this, that yes, things can go definitely wrong, things can go fine, but there is an end to it, and there is a limit to it. Of course, we say that AI can provide personalized and adaptive learning experiences. Yes, why not? We can agree. Do you agree? Yeah, to a certain extent, to a certain degree, why not? Students can set their level, they can set the rhythm, how fast they want to learn, so yes. If we think back to our concepts we talked about, transfer, transference, empathy, we will test AI in this system. So, transfer, you remember it was reusing knowledge across different contexts. Why not? You can learn something with AI and then use it in a real life situation. Again, to a certain degree. Third point, where I absolutely support the idea that AI is the greatest thing in the world ever invented for learning because it enhances autonomy. So learners can be autonomous, they can manage their learning on their own, and they can stay in isolation because obviously the interaction will probably not be very quick between the two of them. So when AI moved from being a tool to being a chatbot and an agent, I think that's when things had to started to really become, I won't say dangerous, but something that we should reflect on, that how we address this person, because as soon as AI started to respond, to interact with us, interaction is what makes us human, then we started to attribute human attributes to this failure. So if we test again AI on our scale of empathy, we can say that AI can understand what we say. We can say that AI can, in inverted commas, can feel, or at least it can simulate that it feels what our input conveys. But the third element and dimension of empathy, which we said was the most important, the action, that doesn't happen. So whatever empathy the AI might have, it's just a simulated empathy. It pretends. It remains on the surface of words. AI has a declarative knowledge. It can answer with language, but it will not create a meaningful interaction, because we said that a meaningful interaction means involving this empathic concern. Now, what about transference? We are going backwards a little bit in our steps of concepts. We said past transferences when past experiences impact present interactions, present situations. Now here, I think our AI will fail completely, because he will not have the memory. He will not have this temporal aspect, this temporal scope of my past. So whatever learning is achieved or produced through AI will not shape those emotional patterns that define us as humans. Now, let's look at time. And time in learning, we already mentioned when we talked about the dynamic systems, that time and development is a very important factor of learning. And if we go back to sociocultural Vygotsky, then he said that development in general happens over time, and change and transformation happens over time. Now, my problem with AI-generated learning is that it is instantaneous. Whatever we do, it goes for efficiency and immediacy. It doesn't give this prospect and this possibility of bridging the past and the present. It's always in the present, in the instantaneous moment. So we tested our AI. Now, what is left is that maybe compare, but let's look at the limits. So obviously AI will not replicate human interaction because of the lack of the empathy, because of the lack of the transference. It will not create an emotional connection. There will not be any agency on the part of our students other than clicking. And the learning which happens will be probably very superficial because it's not rooted in time, it's not rooted in emotions, because it's not rooted in interaction, and it's not rooted in experience. So it's not memorable. It's not memorable like you will remember you will not remember what I said, you will not remember what I did, but you will remember how I made you feel. That's what makes moments memorable. But on the other hand, it develops a risk of dependency. I just read an article about most students, that students are like the image on your left. They are alone, they are lonely, they are in solitude, and they use AI, but there is no human interaction compared to another pilgrim's moment, a very memorable moment we had. And that human connection gave me and gave my learning depth and permanence. We were in a Sunday workshop with Mario Rubulukri, he's sitting there, and we did an activity where he introduced how he writes letters and engages students into correspondence. And he explained how much this letter writing sometimes over a whole school year improves their skills in language without any correction, without any intervention from the teacher, just by this human connection of corresponding, writing to each other. Now, that moment was a memorable moment for me, and this is the letter that I personally got, and every person in the group got from Mario. I still have it in my folders at home, and now when I prepare this presentation for you, I took a photo of it as a memorable moment which helped me learn, which helped me move forward through an experience. And ever since, with my business English learners, instead of giving them at the beginning of a training course the plan de la formation, the program for their training, I write them a letter. And I have a standard letter, and each time I adapt to their own context. A financial director is not the same as somebody working in art. So I adapt my letter, and they do reply, and we do have a correspondence, and they do progress in English, and they really appreciate this human touch, this human way of doing something, which goes back to this activity with Mario Rubulukri. Experience. We learn through experience. We value interaction. These are moments at this conference, coffee break, auditorium, and a brilliant workshop with Steffi with 2 airplanes. There was action, there was movement. It is memorable. We might still have the airplane with us. I have an airplane from Segovia that somebody just dropped over me. So let's go back to where we started. to my high school and to the values that I received, I kept, and I probably changed over time. So today, after almost 30 years in this profession, I can say that learning is relational and social. That emotion shapes memory and shapes engagement. And that human connection, which allows the movement of the memories, is a core value to follow. So these are my values. I invite you to reflect on your values. What are those in your river that you kept, that got washed away, which are the new elements, the old elements? But I would like to give you my practice. I've shown you my values, and then here's my practice. I like technology. I think it makes our life at some point easier, more fun. It allows certain things. So a few weeks ago, I was preparing a lesson from one of my learners who is an investment financial director in an investment company, which is absolutely not my specialty. So I will use these things, so I know how to use them in a creative, humanistic, collaborative way. I spent 2 hours, despite the fact that they say, well, with AI you use it and it's done. So for 2 hours, I used all these tools. Tweeting, Wordwall, ChatGPT, quiz that Google from tablet. I created a marvelous lesson for her. Adapted, I found a video from another investment company in the United States. The topic of the lesson was listening to a presentation and taking notes. So the plan was perfect. And then came my student, and she said, well, yeah, I know maybe you've done something else, but I absolutely need, and I would like to practice just presenting, very simple, just presenting myself and my activity at my next business meeting when I negotiate. So all my technology investment was gone, and and we built up her presentation, starting with her presentation that she would have given in French. Since I didn't have anything prepared for this, I just asked her, well, how do you do it in French? So she did it in French, then we were learning the vocabulary, then I helped her with different techniques to memorize, to present. The lesson was online, so we could still use, I use Google Docs actually to communicate and to share material in an online lesson. And then by the end of the lesson, she was, she was absolutely fluent to present herself. And this is where my values come in. What do I value? Do I value all the time and effort I put in preparing just to learn these tools, because that's also time you take to learn the different tools? Or do I value something which is human, which is spontaneous, which is emergent? And I think, and I hope, that this lesson will be a memorable lesson list, but it was definitely useful. So it was definitely something that can be used outside our meeting room. Classroom is rehearsal for life, as Anna said it. So what do? Do we go with the waves, or do we just accept and act accordingly that technology, and under technology I mean AI, can support learning, but it will not replace, we usually say it will not replace teachers. No, it will not replace connection. It will not replace that human connection. Because language is not just something we learn, it is something we live, and we live through connection with others. And that connection is grounded in empathy and is grounded in shared experiences like this conference. These are my two rivers, the Danube in Budapest and Izerz in Grenoble. And I invite you to think a little bit about your own river. What are those elements which come into the river? Which are the elements which stay? Which are the elements that are left behind? And what is that core value, that core point which makes your river remain the same? In this water, when you leave this building, maybe on one of those beautiful gondolas, you will take a lot of things with you. We have learned so much here over these 2 days. Some things will stay, some things will be left behind, not because they are not important, but because probably your river would just flood. But your river, your own river, will be the same. And that's the point of reflection. At the beginning, I thanked APPI, I thanked Anna, I thanked Sonia, if she's here to share this moment with you. And at the end, I would like to thank Pilgrims Teacher Training, who made this connection and made this possible. And we have QR codes that you can flash, which will take you to the Pilgrims Teacher Training website, which will give you the list of courses and the dates for the courses that we run in Segovia in July. There is still one raffle left where we are offering a free language course. And if you are interested in developing yourself and getting those more elements and drops of water in your experience bag, then we have 2 magazines that are free. They are online, the Teacher Training Journal and Humanizing Language Teaching. If you get in touch with, now we don't have the stand anymore, but Phil, Dexter, and Steffi are here. They can take your address, your name, and you can be on the list of people. But other than that, you can find the Pilgrims Facebook group, Facebook page, and you get this information. And we have 2 upcoming events. One, surprisingly, is about humanistic use of AI. And you know, I'm totally ignorant in this, but here we will have the real experts who will have a panel discussion on how we can integrate in a humanistic way AI into our teaching. Csilla, she works with UNESCO, that she was a pilgrim's trainer. Nick Peachy is an expert in technology. If you want to know how to use the latest gizmos in technology, you ask him virtually, go on his website. Jimmy Kelly, he had brilliant ideas and books and presentations. I know him based on his work with films, how to use videos, how to use films in teaching, and the panel discussion will be facilitated by our own field. And the other event, and this event is actually next week, so the way to register is that you have to send an email and then you will get a link to the Zoom. It's going to happen on Zoom on the 16th of May. And another event, which is a larger event, but again is online, so it's accessible for everyone. It's a 2-day online conference which is organized by the Teacher Training Journal. And as you see, the list of presenters, it announces to be a very rich and thought-provoking 2 days of professional development. So, obrigada por vir aqui. Again at the next APPI conference, which is the next year.